Freedom's frontier.
Eriksson was a war veteran who was now living his days like an ordinary civilian. While riding a tram, he noticed an Asian woman who looked familiar. Seeing her brought Eriksson back to 1966, when he was sent to fight the Vietcong during the Vietnam War. Each night, 3 to 5 military teams were assigned to search for Vietcong bases hidden in the jungle. At that time, Eriksson, who had only been in Vietnam for a few weeks, was placed in a team led by Lieutenant Riley. After marching for a long distance, they decided to stop for a moment and radio the other teams to report their current position. The jungle, which had been quiet and still, suddenly turned tense when the sound of a mortar attack rang out. Their position was actually safe, but one of the soldiers opened fire after thinking he saw someone. Their location was revealed, and within seconds, Vietcong mortars began targeting them. After the order to retreat, the team became separated, and at that moment, Eriksson was nearly hit by an explosion, sending half of his body falling into a tunnel the Vietcong had been digging. The situation was completely chaotic. Every American soldier was focused on saving themselves, so no one noticed Eriksson screaming for help. Things grew more intense as the mortars kept coming, and it was only a matter of time before one of them landed right where Eriksson was trapped. From below, a Vietcong soldier tried to attack him, but fortunately, a sergeant named Tony Meserve pulled Eriksson up.
Help me! Help me!
Sarge! I need help! Help! Oh, thank God! Oh, come on! Oh, shit!
A few days later, under Sergeant Tony's command, Eriksson was assigned to inspect a village suspected of hiding Vietcong soldiers. Upon arriving, Tony ordered the others to sweep every corner to look for any Vietcong who might be hiding. While the others searched, Tony interrogated the village chief, who insisted that they had never sheltered any Vietcong. Tony shouted at him several times, but the answer remained the same. None of the villagers were involved or hiding communists. Meanwhile, Eriksson blended in with the villagers, and Brownie reminded him not to trust them too easily, since any one of them could be in disguise. Not long after, Tony returned to gather the team so they could head back to base, but suddenly, without warning, a sniper shot struck Brownie.
And leave Freedom's frontier.
After the attack was handled, Eriksson noticed the village children he had seen earlier helping a Vietcong fighter escape into an underground tunnel. That evening, a support helicopter arrived, and the severely wounded Brownie was evacuated to the base first. The next day, at the base, Eriksson and the others heard that they would have a few days off. The news made them happy, since they had been constantly occupied with jungle operations for nearly a month. But their excitement disappeared instantly when they learned that Brownie didn't make it. Clark, who had been Brownie's closest friend, was furious. He blamed all the villagers in Vietnam, believing they were responsible for Brownie's death. Eriksson didn't agree with him, but at that moment, he stayed silent. That night, Tony brought in a new member named Diaz, who would replace Brownie as the communications soldier. Tony also brought unpleasant news. Their time off was postponed because the next day they had an important mission to inspect the route that would be used by American troops to attack Tra Cook Hill in the Hill 209 area. The next day, they left an hour earlier because Tony planned to stop by a village not far from the route. At first, Eriksson thought the visit was part of the mission, but instead, Tony and Clark forcibly took a young girl who had been asleep. The girl's screams woke the villagers, but they couldn't do anything as Hatcher pointed a gun at them. Eriksson was shocked by what Tony had done, and Diaz, who assumed this was something soldiers did routinely, was just as unsettled. At that moment, neither Eriksson nor Diaz could do anything except follow Tony's orders. Before leaving the village, Eriksson apologized to the girl's family, who cried and begged for her to be returned.
Sorry.
During the march, the girl, whose name was Huyen, was forced to walk barefoot while the soldiers were fully equipped. Along the way, Eriksson tried asking Tony why he had taken her by force. But Tony didn't answer. He simply told Eriksson to catch up with Hatcher, who had gone ahead. When Eriksson caught up to Hatcher, he was even more shocked to hear that Hatcher believed Tony's actions were clever and that he regretted soldiers hadn't been using village girls as entertainment from the start. Eriksson tried to remind Hatcher that what they were doing was wrong, but just like Tony, Hatcher didn't care. When they stopped to rest, the exhausted Huyen was mocked and turned into a source of amusement by Tony and Clark. Eriksson began to lose his patience and confronted Tony again. But Tony became angry, insisting that Huyen deserved such treatment because she was Vietcong. The argument escalated, but Eriksson was left speechless when Tony accused him of defending the enemy. Not long after, they continued their march, and Huyen's suffering grew worse when she was forced to carry heavy gear. Before nightfall, they decided to stop at an old hut that had long been abandoned. Tony took Clark and Hatcher to scout the area around the hut, while Eriksson and Diaz were assigned to prepare food and store the ammunition. Once the two of them were alone, Diaz finally admitted that he also didn't like what was happening and didn't want to treat the girl harshly or take advantage of her. Moved by sympathy, Eriksson gave Huyen some water and tried to clean her wounds.
I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm gonna clean. Okay? Stay still. It's gonna be okay.
Another argument broke out when Tony returned and tried to persuade Eriksson to stop making an issue out of what they were doing. There was a moment where guns were pointed, but Eriksson managed to hold back his anger and chose to stand down. Soon after, Eriksson walked away, leaving the others who were lining up while Tony took his turn with Huyen. The assault continued into the night, and Diaz, who had been afraid of Tony from the beginning, was forced to follow his orders and take part. The next morning, Tony took everyone except Clark to the edge of a cliff to observe Vietcong activity. They saw armed villagers unloading wooden crates from boats and moving them toward a cave nearby. Seeing a good opportunity to attack, Tony ordered Eriksson and Hatcher to return to the hut and retrieve their weapons. To strengthen the assault, Diaz was assigned to request air support from the base. When Eriksson and Hatcher arrived at the hut, Clark, who had grown bored from sitting around, forced Eriksson to take over guarding Huyen. Eriksson tried to refuse, but Clark insisted, claiming he outranked him. Eriksson then checked on Huyen and found she was burning with fever. Seeing how terrified and weak she was, he gave her some pieces of cake and water to drink. In that moment, Eriksson felt Huyen had suffered enough and needed to be saved. He decided to take her and escape, but just as they had taken only a few steps, Clark suddenly appeared from behind.
What are you doing? Nothing, man. Nothing.
After observing for a while, Tony and his men realized that the boats arriving were delivering weapons for the Vietcong. At that moment, their surveillance was disrupted by Huyen's constant coughing. Before they were discovered, Tony ordered Eriksson to kill her, but Eriksson refused. Tony then told Diaz to do it instead.
Why me, man?
You little piece of bug shit, you do what I'm telling you.
No, I don't want to, Sarge. Come on.
Diaz, go do it, goddammit, do it!
Diaz, no, man.
Do it! Do it!
Diaz!
Do it!
During the battle that followed, without Eriksson's knowledge, Huyen was stabbed multiple times by Clark. Tony and the others tried to slowly retreat while continuing to fire back. Against all expectations, Huyen was still able to walk, following the railway tracks that served as the escape route for Tony and his team. When Tony and his men finally pushed the Vietcong back, he noticed Huyen walking beside them. Panicking, Tony shouted at his men to shoot her. Eriksson ran to stop them, but Tony blocked his way.
No! Stop it! No! Shoot her!
Not long after, a support helicopter reached the area and dropped bombs on the Vietcong base. Eriksson, who didn't have time to take cover, was knocked unconscious by the explosion. A few hours later, Eriksson woke up in the medical ward. He immediately looked for his friend Rowan and told him everything that had happened. While he was speaking, Clark suddenly appeared behind him. suspecting that Eriksson had already reported what took place. Clark tried to convince Eriksson to rejoin the team, but Eriksson refused. After Clark left, Rowan suggested that Eriksson report the incident to Lieutenant Riley. Without wasting time, Eriksson did so, but to his shock, Riley told him to stay quiet and pretend the case never happened. Afterward, Eriksson returned to Rowan and expressed his disappointment that Riley had dismissed the situation. Eriksson then said he would go to Captain Hill, Riley's superior, hoping Hill would take action. Rowan disagreed, warning him that going above the chain of command was despised in the military. Eriksson didn't seem to care. While the rest of the unit was attacking the hill, he used that moment to go meet Captain Hill. The captain already knew the details of the incident, as Lieutenant Riley had reported it beforehand. Eriksson's optimism collapsed instantly when he heard Hill's response, which was no different from Riley's. Hill prioritized the military's reputation over investigating the case. Hill stated that he would deal with those involved, but he would not file any formal charges for the sake of protecting the military's image. He also promised to transfer Eriksson to any division he wanted if he could no longer serve under Tony's command. Before leaving, Hill suggested that Eriksson stay silent, warning him that Tony and his men might do something dangerous to him. Hill's warning proved true. While Eriksson was in the latrine, Clark secretly followed him and prepared to place a grenade beneath the toilet he was using. At that moment, Hatcher almost walked in, but Clark told him to run. Seeing this, Eriksson immediately grew suspicious, and seconds later, while everyone rushed toward the site of the explosion, Eriksson noticed Hatcher and Clark watching from a distance, showing no curiosity like the other soldiers. From that, Eriksson realized the blast had been Clark's doing. Without a second thought, Eriksson grabbed a shovel and headed toward Clark, who was casually playing cards with the others.
You sick son of a bitch.
I told you, Jerry. What happened?
Nobody cares, Reserve. I told him you don't have to worry. You don't have to try and kill me, man.
That night, Eriksson got drunk, feeling hopeless about the military he had once believed would help save Vietnam. In the middle of his despair, he was approached by the military chaplain, who noticed Eriksson sitting quietly. The chaplain only wanted to calm him down and prevent him from doing anything that might endanger himself or others. He gently encouraged Eriksson to talk about what was troubling him. Eventually, Eriksson opened up and told him about the rape and murder of the village girl. Unexpectedly, the chaplain brought the case to light, forcing Captain Hill to take action. The girl's body was recovered, and soon after, Clark, Tony, Hatcher, and Diaz were put on trial by the military court. During the trial, Clark showed no remorse at all. He insisted that he and Tony were soldiers who belonged on the battlefield, and that the longer they were held, the more it would benefit the Vietcong. Hatcher admitted to what he did, but his slow-witted demeanor made it seem like he didn't fully understand the gravity of his actions. Diaz openly confessed, explaining that he had only taken part because he was afraid of Tony as his superior. Meanwhile, Tony claimed that the girl they kidnapped was a prisoner, and that he killed her because she posed a risk of revealing their reconnaissance position to the enemy. The court found all 4 soldiers guilty. Diaz received the lightest sentence, 8 years in prison. Hatcher was sentenced to 15 years. Clark was given life imprisonment for rape and murder. And finally, Tony, the one who orchestrated it all, was sentenced to 10 years in prison. This movie is adapted from a true story that was first published by the New Yorker magazine in 1969. However, the story and the characters' names in the film have been changed. In reality, during the original trial, Hatcher was not found guilty of murder. Even when he appealed, his conviction for rape was completely overturned. He was only found guilty later during a retrial. All of Hatcher's previous confessions were ruled invalid under the Constitution at that time. Back to Eriksson, who remembered that the woman riding the tram with him looked very much like Huyen. Not long after, the woman got off, and Eriksson followed. They spoke briefly, and Eriksson told her that she looked very similar to someone he once met in Vietnam.